Hi, this is Callan Bentley. Welcome back for another Smart Figure. After watching this video, you should be able to describe some of the different major environments where sediments are deposited. Now, the reason that you want to be able to do that is geologists frequently encounter scenes like this throughout the world, a stack of layered sedimentary rocks that were deposited under some set of conditions sometime in the past. And what we want to be able to do is to say, at this point in the past, the conditions that prevailed at this location on the Earth were, and then fill in the blank. So, in other words, were these sediments deposited by a glacier? Were these sediments deposited by a lake? Were these sediments deposited in the ocean, along a beach, in a desert? There's a lot of different places that these sediments could have been laid down. And so we want to be able to describe those conditions in the past. So here's the main diagram that we want to pay attention to. This shows a whole bunch of different sedimentary environments. There's lakes, for instance, landslides that come off of steep mountain faces, glaciers. There are rivers draining the lakes and the glaciers, carrying water down towards the sea. Perhaps wind is blowing over some areas where there's less vegetation, picking up sediment and carrying it through the air. Maybe that sediment is piling up in dunes. Where the river meets the sea, it slows down and dumps sediment in a delta. The ocean itself is full of many different sedimentary environments, and one of those is a reef. So here's an example of that. This is a river that's draining, obviously, a mountainous area. In the far distance there, you can see steep cliffs that might generate landslides. Looks like there might even be a glacial moraine out there in the background. But then the key thing to focus on is in the foreground. The river is flowing along. It seems to be at relatively low water levels right now because you can see lots of exposed sediment that's not anchored in place by plants. So that sedimentary size is indicative of the particles that water can move when it's really flowing. You can see boulders there and cobbles, pebbles. So that water can really move big pieces of rock when it's at full force. Right now it's not at full force, but you can see it's still moving sediment. Note the color of the river water. It's sort of that cloudy color. That indicates lots of suspended sediment in the river water. Compare that to this situation. This might be the other end of that river where it flows down to the sea. It spreads out to make a delta. So basically the river's current is nullified when it reaches the ocean. There's no longer any slope for it to drop down. And so it slows down and it dumps whatever sediment it's carrying. And that builds out into this big flat fan-shaped structure called a delta. So with these sorts of things in mind, pick a location here on this diagram that would be a good location where you get very well-sorted sand. In other words, sand with no clay and sand with no boulders. Hopefully you selected the dunes. Yeah, the dunes are a nice place where sand can accumulate. What about a location where you would expect to see a large variety of different sedimentary particle sizes? Not just sand, but also clay and boulders too. Hopefully your selection there would be the glacier. So yeah, glaciers deposit these big deposits of sediment known as moraines. We'll talk about them more in another Smart Figure. But yeah, that's a nice example there, the distinction between those two of the different kinds of sedimentary deposits that accumulate in different environments. Thanks for your attention. This has been another Smart Figure.